So let's watch a video now of the next level of children who would be in stages 5 through 8. Since we've already seen video G, we're going to use video F, and this is going to be a group of children who are 5th graders, but they need some extra help because they're below grade level. Video F will demonstrate lesson plan C30 and 31. You will see I have to continuously, in this particular video, call their attention to the meaning. What is going on? What is happening here? Since it is a flex group, we're using a quality piece of literature. It's just not as intense, of course, as their novels would be in their regular classroom. They need extra processing experiences. So let's watch video F to show you a demonstration of what a flex group would be.
Guided process reading at the intermediate level.
Hello. This tape will present a flexible, homogeneous guided process reading group at the intermediate level. We will view intermediate students participating in discussions and thinking about a below grade level selection. The reference pages used in this guided process reading session are included in your Accelerating Literacy Training Handbook. This lesson will include processing text, text analysis, and logging information. Students who are unable to recognize approximately 90% of the words in their grade level text need 2 types of guided process reading each day. First, they need to participate in heterogeneous groups with their peers in grade level text. This allows below grade level readers to discuss themes and critical thinking questions at their appropriate conceptual level. Second, below grade level readers need to participate in somewhat homogeneous, flexible groups with students who have similar needs. This provides below grade level readers with additional opportunities to practice using the cueing system and interpret text. I'd like for you to write forest at the top of that left-hand column that we've now created. Right up there, forest. And think in your mind, what is the picture you have in your mind? Can you visualize a forest? Maybe you've been to a forest. What comes to mind just like that when you think about a forest? Write a couple of descriptors down, or things that you might see. Remember, we're going to just write in phrases and not complete sentences at this time to get it down as quickly as we possibly can. All right. Someone throw out an idea. Someone's already got 4 ideas. Animals, streams, plants, trees, grass. All right. Today we're going to read about a different type of forest. And this forest is found in an unusual place. Let's take a look at this part right here. Where's this forest found? Australia. Look up there where they've noted the forest and see what kind of a forest it is.
Rainforest.
A rainforest. Okay, in the right-hand side of your paper, what I'd like for you to do, opposite the forest right here, I'd like for you to write rainforest. Write some things down about the rainforest. Let's just look at the cover of the book. What do you notice on that?
Like the birds.
Okay, tropical birds. Exactly. And this forest happens to be
By the ocean.
by the ocean or near a sea or something like that. So we've already found out something just by looking at the pictures. Would you write that over on the right-hand side? Remember, just use phrases so we can do this quickly. Okay. Let's read the title together. Here we go. Where the forest
meets the sea.
Again, it meets the sea, so it's near the sea, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, just put your pencils down for a minute and let's just go through the book. And let's start to read and find out as much information as we can about this particular rainforest. Let's read the first page together.
Father knows a place we can only reach by a boat.
What did that tell you?
We can
Sort of isolated, no roads to it. How are you going to write your idea down so you can remember it? What are you going to say? What are you going to say?
by boat.
You have to get there by boat.
Only by boat.
Only by boat? Could you write down on the next page? Just read it to yourself and see. What did it tell you?
Not many people go there, and you have to go through the reef.
What's a reef?
It's like coral and
Oh, coral, all right. You knew that. There's a lot of students that don't know that. So what does that mean when you have to go through the reef? What does that mean?
You have to go through where the coral is lower.
All right.
By boat.
Oh, why would that be a problem, though? Tell me.
Because because the coral is like, the boat could get stuck in it. No, the weeds could stop the motor.
Yeah, the seaweed gets tangled around the motor.
All right,
Yeah.
all right. So it's sort of dangerous, isn't it? So it's not very accessible again. All right, you have to watch out for the reef. Just a couple of notes to yourself. It's amazing how much you can find out in just a few pages, isn't it? All right, let's put the pencil down now. And at the end, in a few minutes, we will continue to log in some things about this particular forest. On the next page, I want you to partner read. Someone needs to read the first paragraph and someone needs to read the second paragraph to your partner, okay? Could you do that for me? Read kind of quietly to your partner.
When we arrived, cockatoos rise from the forest in a squawking cloud. My father says there has been a forest here for over 100 million years.
All right, put your finger underneath the word that tells you what kind of birds came out of the forest whenever they stepped onto the beach. What kind of?
Cockatoos.
Cockatoos. Everyone have that?
Yeah.
All right. How did the author describe these cockatoos as they came out of the forest? Squawking cloud. Interesting way to say that, isn't it? A squawking cloud. I guess they disturbed quite a bit of birds there. Okay. Anything else that you could sort of tell me about this forest?
It's been there over 100 million.
100 million years. Can you write 100 million years? Can you know how many zeros you need for 100 million years?
Lot. 10.
8.
We're going to have to think about that one, aren't we? 100 million years, okay? All right, here we go. Turn the page. Okay, can we Coral read again? Just read together, kind of quietly. My father says,
Crocodiles here, and kangaroos that live in trees. Maybe there still are.
oh, did you see that?
Yeah.
Easy.
It's not really there, though, is it? What's it called when it's not really there?
Like an imagine.
All right.
It's going to be with the water in the sand.
That's true. I think it's just an imagination there. Okay, here we go. Now what's he going to do? Read to yourself.
He's going to follow. He follows a creek into the forest.
Okay, what's another word for creek?
Stream.
Stream, little river, something like that. Okay, we're doing very well. Let's turn on. And here we go. We're going to do what? Pretend. All right. And as he's pretending, oh, there you found it. What did you find?
Dinosaurs.
All right.
Oh,
Do you see it?
I saw something like that.
Because he's pretending over 100 million years, isn't he?
Yeah. Oh. Yeah,
Okay.
I saw something like sitting
Here
down.
we go.
He's like picturing it
Is he?
in his mind.
Okay. Now here's what I need you to do. You're going to read, you're going to read, you're going to read, and let's see, how about you? Let's have you read together on this next page. Here we go.
On
the bank of the creek, the vines and creepers try to hold me back. I push through. Now the forest is easy to walk in.
Did the vines and creepers, what did he say, hold me back? What do you think that means?
They keep you from going through because they're scratching and stuff.
All right, and it is in this particular forest very dense, isn't it? Okay? Read the next page to yourself. See what he's going to do here. Wonders. All right. Okay. He's on this pretend journey, isn't he? Okay, let's partner read again.
I find an ancient tree, it is hollow. Perhaps a born forest children played here too.
Can you find the Aboriginal children?
Oh, there's one right there, and there's right there. I see one.
Isn't that a wonderful
there
thing?
it is.
Thank you so much. All right, turn the page. Now, look at the picture. Where do you think the kid is?
Like in a cave.
In a cave.
A hollow tree. Oh, in the hollow tree.
All right. The one that you just... See what he's done? All right, so he steps inside.
Wow. Yep.
And let's see what he sees as he looks out. Can you read to yourself? Why don't you add something to your math right now, to your log that you're doing, that you found out about this particular forest? Could you write something down for me? Maybe even a couple of things.
I see Indians.
Why don't we do the other group of children that didn't read a while ago? So, the other group that didn't read. How about you reading this to us?
It is time to go and find my father. I think I hear the sea. I walk towards the sound. Just like a picture.
Oh, yes, we saw that. Okay.
It's like one big whole thing.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Could you just finish the book by yourself?
Yeah.
And then add 2 more things to your log?
I like this trip this way. And then closer because of But will the forest still be here when I come back? When we come back?
Okay, close the book for me. And you finished. All right, look with me. Are you going to add some things? Okay, go ahead. You've collected quite a bit of information about the rainforest, haven't you? This particular one. All right, here's what I'd like you to do now. Draw a line that goes across your paper. Right across there. Now, here's what I'd like you to do. I want you to write for me now a sentence about what do you think the book is about? Why do you think the author would write a book such as this? What message do you think he had in writing this book?
his feelings.
No, don't say anything. This is your turn. I want you to write a sentence all by yourself, and then we're going to discuss it. What do you think his message is? Give it a try. Someone share. What do you think the message is?
I think he wrote it because if he's trying to tell us that if you use your imagination that you can see a lot of things.
That used to be there.
Yeah.
In this particular forest?
Yeah, what used to be there.
All right. Go ahead, say yours. You want to read exactly what you have there?
He thinks it will not.
he might think that it will not be the same in a couple of years.
Okay. All right. How about you sharing yours now? Read exactly what you have on your paper.
I think his message is you can always use your imagination.
That's similar to what you said, isn't it? Does anyone have a different type of idea that they've written down?
I do.
You do? Okay. Would you read
I
that?
think he's expressing his feelings.
Okay, and what types of feelings do you think he's having?
Well,
What types of feelings do you think he might be having about the rainforest?
I think he liked this book because he thought other people would think it is interesting.
Well, I was interested, weren't you?
yeah.
Yeah, so we can agree with all of that.
Yeah.
All right, if you think of that feeling, I want you to write it down as well, all right? Now, do you have a different idea to share? Did you have one to share?
His feelings about it and what he imagined as a little boy.
All right, like he went through the forest. Okay, in the box underneath this one now, what was happening to the rainforest as the author went through this book? What was happening to it? It was changing. It wasn't
It
it?
was changing as he
All
went
right,
along.
so this is about change, the changing rainforest, isn't it? Okay, now, on the very last page, he had a picture like this. Remember that one?
That's what he thought it was going to turn into.
I think you're right. I think you're right. Now, here is what I want you to do. Do you, with your opinion, think, in your opinion, should the rainforest change to this extent? Yes or no, and the reason. Write a sentence that tells me, do you think the rainforest should change to this extent? You can say yes, no, and then you tell me the reason why or why not. All right, you got your answer already, don't you? Okay. Okay, I'm going to say something that's opposite to your view. See, this is your opinion. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the opposite opinion. All right? And then what you have to do is argue with me in writing. All right? Who's ready to argue with me? Okay, give me your opinion here. How about you and your partner?
We both got no, but
You've got no, but could you argue with your partner? Why don't you do that? Why don't you argue with your partner? Change papers and argue with your partner.
Basically the same thing.
Okay, you've got another answer there for me, don't you? And I'll continue to argue with several of you. Okay, I think you'll like that one. Oh, you've got an answer for me. You've got another answer for me, don't you? Okay, has anyone argued with you yet? Okay, let me do that. Look at that opinion that you have there. Okay? And I was arguing with you a little bit. I'm taking the opposite view. But if you want to make that opinion very strong, can you think of 3 facts to support your opinion? 3 pieces of evidence that support your opinion. Why should there be a rainforest anyway? Or if you think it should change to this extent, then why should it change to this extent? Can you think of 3 facts? What would make it stronger? What would make your argument stronger? Anyone think of an example of why we need the rainforest?
Tropical animals.
tropical animals will become
air.
Oxygen. Oxygen.
They'll become extinct if you take down all the trees.
okay, so some of the animals will become extinct. There's a lot of people that argue that. How about
We need
you?
to purify the air with the trees.
That is a super argument because you know what? That affects me. And if I'm arguing with you, then that affects me. So think of 3 facts that you're going to come up with to make your argument stand. And write those 3 facts down. 1, 2, 3. Right underneath that, on the next spot you have on your paper. All right. Someone have 3? You do? Okay, why don't you share yours?
Air, animals, and trees.
Read your opinion first.
I think that the rainforest should not be changed into that, because if all the trees would be gone and all the animals would be gone, and we need the trees for the air and we need the animals. So like we would have them because we need food and everything.
All right. Do one of you have an additional fact that she could use to make her argument even stronger? Do you have one she might use? One that you're going to use?
There's already too many hotels.
You think there's already enough? You know there's lots of vacancies around?
There's already enough places for people to work and live and everything. They don't need to go cutting down the island.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. But how are people going to visit this place, or should they be able to visit a place like this? I sort of enjoy
They can go there if they treat it nicely. If they don't throw
They don't chop them down.
They don't throw trash all
Like
over
they have
it.
to like people.
And what's wrong with that?
Like on the
And what's wrong with this?
and the natural
what you're saying?
and the national parks that you're allowed to go and visit, but you're not allowed to take anything from
Yeah,
All
they can be like
right.
a little museum. They
Just
could go there
walk
if they
through
didn't
it.
throw trash all over.
All right. So respect this one and leave it as is?
Yeah, keep
Maybe
it. They
we
can
need
do
a-
other stuff with it and just keep it that way.
All right. All right. Thank you for being with me today. You did a great job with this.
We're done?
You're finished. Analysis of Group F. The trainer coach demonstrated Format 3 with a group of 8 students. Students were placed in the flexible group to improve their comprehension skills. The teacher was interested in observing the trainer coach assessing students' comprehension skills, information about students' placements, and recommendations. The book required students to construct meaning at the early stage 5 or simple interpretation level. Teachers were asked to highlight the lesson components they observed and to script the questions the trainer coach asked. Teachers observed the following guided process reading procedure. A brief introduction. Students were asked to log prior knowledge about forest on the left side of a single sheet of paper. Students logged new information about the rainforest on the right side. Students were shown the book Where the Forest Meets the Sea. They determined that the forest was found in Australia. Using different reading techniques of choral variation, silent, and partner reading, the trainer coach guided students to process the print. As students processed, the trainer coach asked literal and inference questions. Due to the simplicity of the book, it was not necessary for the trainer coach to visually map students' thoughts. In addition, the trainer coach did not try to influence students into changing their minds about what was happening in the story. This allowed the trainer coach to assess students on the main idea. Student objectives or standards included several levels. Analyzing level, including contextual and literal questions, interpreting level, and critical level. The following is a summary of the teacher's observations. The student's log contained literal concrete information such as animals, trees, birds, grass, and plants. The questions were marked with L and C for literal contextual, I for inference and interpretive, and CT for critical thinking. Examples of contextual literal questions include, where is this forest found? What's a reef? How did the author describe the cockatoos? What's it called when it's not really there? What's another word for creek? A total of 11 contextual literal questions were asked. Examples of inference interpretive questions include, why would that be a problem? Where do you think the kid is? What do you think this book is about? Why do you think an author would write a book such as this? What message do you think he had in writing this? A total of 8 inference interpretive questions were asked. Using this early Stage 5 book required students to think at a simple interpretation level. The trainer coach pointed out that before a lesson begins, a teacher needs to formulate several summary statement possibilities of the main idea or the author's message. This not only directs the teacher's questioning, but also allows the teacher to assess verbal and written responses during the lesson. Summary statements generated by the trainer coach included, the book was about a boy walking through a rainforest and imagining how the forest had evolved over 100 million years. At the end, he wondered if it would evolve to extinction. The book was about how an Australian rainforest had changed over 100 million years and how it could change in the future. The book was about a trip through time to view a rainforest at different periods. In the final period, it had disappeared. The author's message is, if the evolution pattern of this rainforest continues, it will disappear due to commercial development. Since the trainer coach requested that students write their responses, it was possible to assess each student's ability to state the main idea or author's message. The retail rubric was used to rate each student's response. The rubric is appropriate for students reading at stages 3, 4, and early 5. Students' responses were scored as follows. Student 1, if you use your imagination, you can see a lot of things. 0. Student 2, I think he's expressing his feelings. 0. Students 3 and 4 did not respond verbally. Their written responses were assessed after the lesson. Student 5, his feelings and what he imagined as a little boy. 0. Student 6, you can always use your imagination. 0. Student 7, he thought other people might think it was interesting. 0. Student 8, he might think it would not be the same in a couple of years. 3. The trainer coach asked what was happening to the rainforest as the author went through this book. Student 8 responded, it was changing. On the very last page, and Student 8 responded, that's what he thought it was going to change into. Using the critical thinking taxonomy in the middle of the lesson plan, the trainer coach asked students to move beyond analysis and interpretation to stating their opinions about future possibilities of the rainforest. Examples of critical thinking questions include, in your opinion, should the rainforest change to this extent? Yes or no, and why or why not? Students were asked to write their opinions. Can you think of 3 facts or 3 pieces of evidence to support your opinion? What would make your opinion stronger? Does anyone have an additional fact she could use? A total of 12 critical thinking questions were asked. No strategy or word recognition emphasis was necessary. Only the pronunciation of Aboriginal was given. 35% of the questions were literal contextual. 26% were inference interpretive, and 39% were critical. 65% of the questions asked were above the literal level. The trainer coach made the following statements and recommendations. Students ranged from stages 5 to 6. Student 8 appears to be comprehending at stage 6 and should be moved to a higher flexible group. It may be necessary for the teacher to step back to the page-by-page prediction procedure reviewed in Video E in order for some of the students in this group to stabilize simple interpretation skills about the main idea. The lesson lasted 19 minutes. Today's session is going to deal with guided process writing. This is the writing at the student's instructional level. It is where the teacher leads them through the writing process, thinking about writing. If you could turn to F1, you will see in this component we take the student through the process of thinking, pre-writing, writing, revising, proofreading, publishing, and the teacher during this time observes, assesses, and confers with the students in different types of writing. This is the other instructional piece. So guided process reading is your most important component, and then guided process writing would be your second instructional piece. This process can be depicted in this way. Sometimes you see this in linear forms, but I would like to consider that the voice of the writer, which was given to us by Donald Graves, is bouncing around like a ball among these different pieces as the writer goes through the process of writing. So you might think for a little bit, you might start jotting down some thoughts that you have, and then you say, oh, I think I need to organize this a little bit better, and you may go back and construct some kind of a visual organizer to help you. Then you might ask someone to consider it, revise it based on their recommendations, and then you may go back and pre-write some more and then go back to the writing. The thought here being that you are going from piece to piece and it may not be in a certain order. Now, as we look at these notes on this particular component, guided process writing is conducted at the student's instructional level. And here's the part about the personal inner voice by Graves. There are two ways that we organize this particular piece. I would like to suggest that you have a writing folder for every student in your class. And if you laminate this, you can use them from year to year if you do not put the student's name on there. They can just remember what color they have, and you place these into these file folder holders, and they can be over on a shelf or they can be in the middle of your table cluster. Every day the student is using this. They do not take it home. On pages F3 and F4, I have represented this folder. At the bottom of this one, you have the writing process. Now, this particular one has the more advanced notations underneath the process so that as you're conferring with the student, you have something that you can refer to and you can talk to them about the step they happen to be on. Most of our conferencing takes place in the revision part where you are dealing with the content of the piece. So if they are writing a paragraph, then you're talking to them about what they should do to revise the paragraph to make it stronger and better. If they're writing a story, you would be conferring with them on that particular type of writing. So your discussion in your conferences usually begin here, and then you move to the proofreading stage if you want to go through the whole process of writing. The conference steps are given in your book, and we will look at those and I will take you through those. But you will be filling out a conference log. On this conference log, you will notice that it's going to have a supportive statement and it's going to have a suggestion that you give to the student. And a little bit later we will walk through an example of this with one of the students' writings that I'm going to share with you. In this folder, you also could have the response log from the GPR, or the Guided Process Reading Group, because they many times get ideas for writing out of this particular response log. Let's just suppose that they have listed traits of one of the characters in the story. What they might do would be to use their list to construct a paragraph describing that particular character. So there's all kinds of ways that you can use the ideas out of your reading response log to get you into some of the writing. You want to include in the folder some drafts in longhand and some drafts that have been constructed on the computer. The drafts stay in here, and then when this is finished and you're completely through with it, then you take this out and this goes into the writing portfolio. So there's two folders. There's one for the student to use, and then the second folder is one for the teacher to keep examples that have been shifted from here into here. In some cases, the writing that is exhibited in here will be still in draft form because it won't go through the complete process. There will be numerous things that you keep in here, so you have multiple measures of a student's writing. On G19, we have listed what goes into each folder. The student folder would house current drafts from different subject matters, ideas, thoughts, and considerations about writing, including their conference log, and perhaps 2 composition books, or a composition book and a student-made book to house their journal writing and their reading log information. Now I need to move you through the conference log on F9 and F10 and how you would interact with the student as they would be working out of this particular folder. The first thing you do is you ask the student to read their selection. If they've written a story, then you would say, you have written a story about, for example, going to the beach is the one that's given in your handbook. You have written a personal narrative. You're stating what type of writing it is that they have tried to construct. The next thing you do is you praise the writer on a specific related to the content. So if it's story writing, then there are certain elements that should be in there. There should be characters, there should be a happening. You have some comments that you are going to record here relative to what it is they're trying to write. If it's expository writing and it's construction of a paragraph, then you might talk about topic sentence or the details or the conclusion sentence or the sequence. You need to save those other things about capitalization, punctuation, and spelling until a later time. Then you direct the writer's attention to a particular section that needs work, and you make the second comment here, which would be the suggestion statement. And I'm just following on F9 and F10 what it is that we're doing when we're walking the student through the conference experience. You make your suggestion and you record it. Now there are 3 ways for us to get this conference grid filled out. In the 2nd through the 6th grade, sometimes it's filled out by the teacher, sometimes it's filled out by the child, and sometimes it's filled out by a peer. In that way, you could fill out 3 boxes per week. When this is full, it is transferred over into the teacher's account of the student's record or the student's writing portfolio. So you have not only examples of the student's work, but you also have evidence and dates when you have discussed the student's writing with them and you have the suggestions that you're making. It's an easy way for you to keep up with the student's writing and verify your conference sessions. Could I have you turn to F21 now, and I would like for us to discuss the journal writing. The journal writing is part of the writing that's done in the classroom that is unassisted and ungraded. It's a casual, free choice writing, and we don't do any corrections with this writing. The spelling, the grammar, the punctuation are not attended to. This is writing that you collect a few samples of just to give you an impression or a way to assess the learner from a different perspective than those types of writing that you do where you're conferencing with the student. So let's give you some examples of how a student can write about a topic related to a theme, how they can sometimes write about something that's happening to them or their family, or maybe questions they have, or sometimes some of them will even attempt a piece of poetry. But this is writing that is spontaneous, or it's writing that the student has not been assigned in any form. So let's take a look at a couple examples of some of the writing that I collected when I was a teacher. Here's one of a child who had a very unusual thing going on in their yard. He lived on a second story, and his bedroom overlooked a tree that was outside, and he had some birds that were building nests in those trees. And so he is sharing this with me because it's very important to him, and yet this is a response that I would have never known about if I had not let him write in the journal. So he says, "This weekend I got a baby blue jay named BJ. He is so tame I trained him to move from a stick to my finger. He's about 3 weeks old." So what had happened was the bird had fallen out of the nest, and he went out and rescued it. So here we have a response that I made back to him saying, "You have done something very unusual." So this journal is being treated as a response journal where I'm going to write back to him. Since this was an unusual circumstance, he not only had the blue jay, but he also had some robins. Yesterday I looked at the robin's nest in our yard, and I saw that the baby robins are flying, and I saw the mother feed them, and then they flew away and they haven't come back yet. So just free writing. Now, as an assessment piece in my portfolio, what I could do is I could copy off one of these pages occasionally and get an idea of how the student is writing without assistance in any way, just their spontaneous writing. So let's look at a couple of days later. He writes this, the sea, because that was the topic under study, and he couldn't think of anything else, and he moved on to something else besides the birds. "As I was walking bright and high, I saw a horse go galloping by. I saw a ship on the horizon. I saw no people, none, not one. I felt a wave come touch my toes. If I had went much further, it would touch my nose." So just spontaneously he is writing. Now here's another student that I'd like to share the journal writing with you. He writes, "In the interest of keeping this journal as short as possible, I have nothing to say." Then he complains the next day. He says, "It can really be tiring writing these journals. Why don't you try the imaginary topics? For example, if you could be anything in the world, what would you become?" And then he responds, "If I could become anything in the world, I would become a paleontologist or a person who studies prehistoric animal life. In other words, I like to study fossils." So then I say, "Super. Are there any prehistoric sea animals?" Since that was one of our topics under study. He says, "Yes. There's the Tribolite, Dimeon, Tron, etc., etc." A couple of days later, he writes this, the sea. "The sea at times is quiet, at others raging and roaring. Sometimes it's a friend, sometimes an enemy. The sea is a strange and mysterious thing, and I like it." So you can tell that these response journals can be very insightful, and it gives the students a chance to share something that is of interest to them that I normally wouldn't hear about. But for someone to create a piece of poetry in this way, but in the beginning, you know, in the interest of keeping this journal as short as possible, I have nothing to say, that's a pretty good sentence. So you do get a little bit of interest, even though he's complaining about it. So the journals then can be one way that we assess the student. If you take a look at this first column, you're going to see that we suggest you collect some of those journal entries that would give you some ideas of how the student responds spontaneously in their writing. This is the writing, remember, that is unassisted, it's not prompted, and it could be just handed to you by the child. This is a type of writing that you don't necessarily have to do every day. Since I didn't want to write back to the students every day, I just didn't have that capability, then what I would suggest is that you write maybe for 2 weeks and then you drop them for a couple of weeks and then you pick them up again and you start maybe a different shape and start the journal writing again, because it's not one of the key components that we've identified in accelerating literacy that you need to do every day. It's an optional piece, but it can be a very, very useful piece for you. Due to limited conferencing at the kindergarten and beginning first grade level, journal writing and guided process writing blend together. Let's end this section by watching a clip from the kindergarten classroom video. The journal is composed of a simple cover with 10 to 15 pages of blank paper. Depending on students' developmental levels, they may draw and/or write about their experiences and ideas. In this classroom, an assistant or a parent volunteer encourages students as they write in their journals. She invites them to read their writings. Students file their journals in crates. When the journal has been completed, the teacher and students review the journal and the student chooses a piece to go into his or her portfolio. The remainder of the journal is taken home. This student chose a particular piece of writing and dictated the reasons for her choice. Her remarks included that she now knows to leave spaces between words and that she can spell more words.